What would happen if I told you that Ferrari's new rear wing is not only an aerodynamic solution, but a desperate cry to survive in the championship? Why is no one absolutely showing you what this change really means and what could cause in the Canada Grand Prix? With 197 points of difference in the Builder Championship after just a few races, Ferrari has understood that following the same path is not an option. It is in this urgent context that the total redesign of its rear occurs. The most significant change is at the point of aerodynamic stagnation, the edge of the alert attack, which has been elevated with respect to the previous model. This adjustment radically modifies the way in which the airflow interacts with the structure of the car. Instead of channeling air on the surface to maximize the load at high speeds, as was the custom, the air passage is now prioritized below the wing to generate load in low-speed areas. This choice is not accidental. It responds directly to Ferrari's historical limitations in slow traction and acceleration circuits from closed curve, where it wasted longer with respect to its rivals. But it is not just where the air is channeled. The way he does is equally revolutionary. Flap rope in external areas has been evidently increased, which forces the flow to travel a greater distance in less time, which generates a pressure differential that increases aerodynamic load. This modified section acts as an acceleration zone of the flow, taking advantage of the physics of the Coanda effect and the Bernoulli principle to make aerodynamic traction more efficient. On the other hand, the main plane has been shrunk towards the terminal plates, which reduces the frontal area and helps maintain a low straight resistance, something essential for rapid calendar circuits. And if this was not enough, the external vertical assembly commonly ignored in general analysis has been redesigned with an outward curvature. This apparently lower decision actually represents one of the deepest changes. The curvature causes a lateral pressure difference that sucks more air flow through the slot gap between the flap and the main plane, facilitating the operation of the spoiler even in conditions of dirty or unstable flow, such as those experienced by following another car. This transformation is not one more update, it is not an attempt to improve tense. It is a survival strategy designed to completely change the aerodynamic character of the SF25. Ferrari, aware that he does not have the car faster, is looking to turn his weakness into a tactical advantage, creating a more versatile car, less dependent on perfection in classification, and more effective in real race conditions, especially in urban or irregular traction circuits. The question is now, is this conceptual leap on time, or is it simply an act reflecting a team that refuses to give up another season before its rivals? Montreal, a circuit that requires surgical precision in each technical decision, has become the ideal stage, or perhaps the cruelest, to test the new Ferrari rear wing. This route, officially known as the Gilles-Villeneuve circuit, is not simply another track on the calendar. It is a stress laboratory for any aerodynamic concept. With long lines that force you to look for peak speed without compromising stability, combined with violent girls and slow curves where traction is everything, the configuration of the car must be a delicate equilibrium act. There is no room for errors here. If your car does not find the exact point of commitment between load and resistance, you are lost. And it is precisely in that scenario where Ferrari has decided to reveal his boldest technical weapon of the year. The rear wing with medium-low load philosophy was designed not only to survive in Montreal, but to try to mark a turning point. This configuration, inspired by what the team had already tried in circuits such as Baku, seeks to reduce progress resistance by eliminating unnecessary frontal area at the ends of the spoiler. But in Montreal, that principle charges a new dimension, because here it is not simply to be fast in line. It's about stopping late, getting out of slow curves, having a car that does not break down when the curbs. That is, precision and consistency are needed. The new spoiler was calibrated exactly for that type of challenge. Ferrari's decision to raise the external sections of the spoiler in Canada also responds to a very specific reading of the circuit. In the long lines, the car needs to cut the air with the lowest possible ballast. And that is where this configuration stands out. When raising the ends, the direct contact surface is reduced with the airflow and therefore the resistance. But the really brilliant is how that shape changes the behavior of the car in the braking points. The slightest load in line allows you to reach higher speeds without penalizing the subsequent stability, because the load is abruptly recovered when braking, thanks to the interaction between the new profile and the rear diffuser. In the girls, on the other hand, the game changes. These zones of abrupt change of direction are especially demanding for the lateral stability of the car. There, the new spoiler seeks to offer a cleaner and less turbulent flow to the lower area of the car, which reduces the risk of sudden survival by crossing the pianos. The curved exterior assembly of the spoiler not only improves the passage of air in line, but also softens the pressure transitions when the car is subjected to multiple force vectors. This property is especially useful in curved braking areas, where SF25 has historically suffered rear instability. But the true genius of this solution will not be seen on the screens easily. The most significant impact is on the way pilots manage tire wear. Lower load in straight means less accumulated heat, and better distribution of flow means less graining in slow curves. In Montreal, where the weather can vary suddenly and the track temperature tends to fluctuate during the weekend, that may be the difference between winning and disappearing from top 10. That is why Montreal is not just one more race. It is the degree exam for the new Ferrari. If this spoiler works here, it will do so in any other mixed calendar circuit. But if it fails, there will be no place to hide. It is Vasseur's great bet and his team, an open pit experiment in one of the most demanding circuits of the year. And it is just in that fragility at that time of maximum uncertainty, where the seed of redemption may be, or a new disaster for the Scuderia. What is not telling what is hidden between lines and technical documents is that this new Ferrari rear winging not only responds to a performance objective. It is not only an aerodynamic piece. It is a message. It is, in essence, a political and structural statement within the Scuderia and, by extension, within the paddock of Formula One. This design represents a strategic inflection point, not only technical. Because each element of that spoiler communicates something. That Ferrari has reached a limit with its old formula, which is willing to rewrite its own dogmas so as not to be buried by McLaren and Mercedes, and that is being prepared for a future where it will not be enough to be competitive. You have to be disruptive. What nobody is showing in their superficial analysis is the true context that surrounds this evolution. For Maranello, this redesign is also an internal pressure tool. Frédéric Vasseur not only wants results, he wants legitimacy as a reformer. The new spoiler is one of the first pieces that are executed under a new decision-making chain that seeks to displace inertia old, ancient engineers who did not dare to break with the principles of 2022 and 2023. What is being tested in Canada is not just a technical solution. It is a way of demonstrating that the team can move quickly, assume risks, challenge its own limits. And that is something that rival teams are watching carefully. But the finest reading of this strategic play must be done through the effect it is generating among its competitors. Red Bull, which has already demonstrated structural vulnerabilities after the Horner case and the hasty replacement of pilots, observes with suspicion how Ferrari abandons its conservatism. Mercedes, on the other hand, has recovered some competitiveness thanks to the meticulous work of George Russell and its adaptation to cold conditions, but has not yet shown an aerodynamic solution that approaches the SF25 wing of the SF25. McLaren, although dominates in points and consistency, maintains an incremental improvement philosophy that, if Ferrari achieves results in Montreal, can be exposed as too cautious. Because if this spoiler pays, even if only partially, Ferrari's technical discourse can change radically. It can be transformed into a justification to adopt a more aggressive development policy during the rest of the year. You can release resources to test new concepts in the diffuser, in the ground, in the cooling of the ERS. And what is even more important, can give the team a new argument to redefine how risk is taken within its structure. Go from waiting for solutions that adapt to the car, to design the car around radical solutions. There is also an emotional component at stake. This spoiler comes just when Lewis Hamilton begins to integrate completely into the team. His ability to adjust his pilot style, something he never did in Mercedes, and adapt the car to his needs opens a window of opportunity for Ferrari. Because the new rear profile also facilitates a more progressive behavior of the posterior axle in braking phase, something essential for Hamilton's style. Leclerc, on the other hand, still prefers a more rigid rear train, more immediate. This difference can be accentuated with this new design and condition future development decisions. The moment that Ferrari lives cannot be understood only from the numbers in the table or from pure engineering. What is happening with this new rear wing is a symbol, a reflection of how a historically rigid, traditionalist and often slow structure to react, is beginning to accept its fragility to transform it into change fuel. But this is where you, as a spectator passionate about Formula One, must stop and reflect. Are we really witnessing the renaissance of Ferrari or only an illusion well presented in the form of carbon fiber? Are we facing a team that has finally understood how to adapt to the era of modern F1, or is it simply another episode more than one cyclical narrative of false hopes? Because if this spoiler fails, the coup will not only be technical, it will be strategic, it will be psychological. The question I ask you is, do you think this version 2025 of Ferrari has what is necessary to break the cycle? Do you think this spoiler is the beginning of a new chapter? or the last attempt of an old glory for staying relevant.